No.
He said he was going to search the page, not page.
Okay. 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 Everyone, you're going on mute. Alison, unmute yourself and we'll begin. So thank you for being here, everyone.
All right. I think I'm me.
Oh, you're on mute again. Okay, we're gonna get this. Ask to unmute. Dang it, Alison, each time it's like there's a lag. Okay. Now you're okay. Press it. I'm gonna move my hands are away from the screen. Now you can.
Okay. Awesome.
Right.
All right. Hi, everybody. Really glad to be with you. I know this was a lot, right? When I looked at how much there was between chapter 4 and chapter 5, I was like, okay, why did I put these together? Oh yeah, because it's all about providing. That's why they went together. So the way I want to do this is first, I am going to address the questions that were sent in because they're to the point, but I've categorized them. So in terms of what's chapter 4, what's chapter 5, what's chapter 6. So I'm just letting you know that information's coming. And then there's something that we don't really do in the Queen's Code at all. So I'll go through these. And then if you have a question about chapter 4, about providing, I'll ask for those. And so please wait to put your hand up for that. And then if you have a question about chapter 5, which is we call it delicious sexual partnerships. If you have questions about that or other things in chapter 5, then I'll take those. And if we still have time, we can do some more of the how do I questions tend to go way beyond the scope of what you've learned so far. Like, how do I build a house instead of how do I use a hammer? And so I'm trying to focus us on, you've just been given the first word of the hero language. These are ways to use it. This is what to pay attention to. Now there's these distinctions in sexual partnerships. This is how to use them. And then we'll see what we can do with the rest. But I'm trying to make the most out of our time together. Does that sound good? Yeah? Okay, awesome. And if, as I'm responding to someone else's question, if you have a question that goes with that, just write it down. Think about, is that chapter 4, chapter 5? And is that providing or is that sex? And then raise your hand when I take more. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to my email so I can read these well. And so these are anonymous, and sometimes the gender matters and sometimes it doesn't. So, and I'm going to take these in first what I'm not going to do, and then I'll take the 4 and then the 5s. So the first question that, in the order that Paige put them for me, was how much weight should we place on intention versus delivery? If someone says or does something that causes another person to feel hurt, is their original intention, being in the right place, all that matters? How do you suggest we handle these situations with men? So there's some that's related and some that isn't quite, okay? So when we experience as a man or a woman that we're hurt or crushed, disrespected, disregarded in some way, which often happens because as compared to the perfect person, if the other person was being considerate, if the other person cared, we think they wouldn't have done that. So this is where, what if there's a good reason, and just the space of that question. What if they had a good reason for that? What that can do that's so important is it can like put a little oxygen around the response to punish. So if you remember in chapter 3, emasculation has a big part of diminishing the person's ability to produce results, but there's also they're misbehaving, they didn't do the right thing, and they didn't do the right thing for totally wrong reasons. They don't love, respect, or care about us so much. as much as they should. So they should be punished. They're misbehaving. They know the right thing. They chose to not do the right thing. They should be punished. So the question, what if they had a good reason for that, can interrupt that. It's almost like our bodies are being thrown forward, which is consistent with compulsion from the limbic part of our brain. It does this thing. It can put some space around it before attacking, before having something come out of our mouth that we can't take back or that is hurtful. And honestly, in my relationships, whether it's with my kids, friends, employees, my boyfriend, my husband before he died, I would be on the lookout for that. And I've been known to just say, I'll call you back, and hang up if I was on the phone, or give me a minute, just to let that very primitive reaction stand down. It's not easy to do. Whether our feelings are hurt or we experience being disrespected, this isn't an easy thing to do. But while the Queen's Code is simple, it's not easy because it's counter-instinctual. It takes a higher consciousness than we have really been educated in exercising in relationships. So the question about intention, I love that, because it's, maybe they had a good reason for that. What if they had a good reason for that? They probably had a good reason for that. So maybe don't just jump. But the question about hurt feelings, it's more complicated, and we explain it. It's one of the last sessions in our Understanding Women online course. And it's also in Extreme Freedom, which is about restoration. But the tricky thing about hurt feelings and disrespect is that somebody does something, and this is congruent with the perfect person, it's quickly interpreted as, what would that mean if I'd done that, or if someone like me had done that? And then how we interpret what they said or didn't say, did or didn't do, is what instantly goes to the hurt feelings, or being disrespected, disregarded, even betrayed. And so it's very hard for the other person to honor your experience when the interpretation isn't even close to why they did what they did. And we often include it in our interaction. I can't believe you said that when you know I such and such, right? And the other person's, well, that's not why I said it. You should say you're sorry for that. You hurt my feelings. Well, I actually didn't hurt your feelings. How you interpreted what I did hurt your feelings, not what I did. So the person who's being accused is in a trap of truth and logic, while the other person is in being hurt, which is very, very painful. And we explain all about that in Understanding Women, or being disrespected, which is an attack, is experienced as an attack, specifically because respect and trust are integral to men being productive. And if what someone's saying disrespects their motivation, they will experience it as being emasculating. So this is something that I've worked on a lot, because it's basically, it works the best when both parties know what's actually happening, and both parties are willing to take care of the other person in spite of truth and logic. And the way I talk about it in Understanding Women, because it's so hard to set aside truth and logic, is, okay, you can fight the 30-foot dragon with truth and logic and get burnt to a crisp, or you can say the magic words. I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. I'm sorry I disrespected you. And these are equally hard, because a man can't see, I didn't punch you in the chest, and a woman doesn't feel a stitch of disrespect in her body. So how could she have disrespected? How could he have hurted? That's not really a real word, but it's why we call it noble healing, because it's generous. It's the willingness to suspend one's own reality, to honor the other's experience so that you can recover your partner, so you can get them back from this huge human reaction. Okay, that was me not answering that question. But there's this other part in the first part. How much weight should we place on intention versus delivery? If the question had stopped there, I would have interpreted it as a question for chapter 6, which is about needs. And when someone agrees to give you what you need, what do you do when they say they'll do it, but they don't do it? This is a huge problem in many, many relationships, that people commit to doing things and then like it's normal, and you'll hear Karen talk about it. I'm tired of hearing him say, I forgot, right? But it's normal because we don't carry the asking all the way through to the end to find out our part and how do we support a yes becoming reality. So you'll see that in chapter 6. You'll get to experience that in chapter 6. I'm not going to try to teach that here. Okay. Then chapter 4. So there's 2 questions here about chapter 4. The first was asked by a man, and that helped me to understand where the question was. Can you clarify how men score points? What kind of things motivate them, and how can women assist in this concept? So one of the things I'd recommend, if anyone is still wondering about this, is re-listen to chapter 4. Just re-listen to it as many times as you have to. It is a cornerstone, and it's tricky to get our heads around sometimes. And there was a man once in a live workshop who said, how come I either get 100 points or none? So if it isn't perfect, if I don't execute what she wants perfectly, I get no points. Why can't I get 80 points? And so this does relate to the how much weight should be placed on intention versus delivery. I would say until we learn to appreciate effort, to acknowledge and appreciate effort, we're not going to have that kind of upward spiral that I'm committed to. And one of the things that men and women don't know about each other is that women are more likely to see what wasn't done, what expectation wasn't met. They're more likely to focus on the not perfect part. And gentlemen, if it gives you any compassion, the person on the worst end of that is ourselves. We have a voice in our head that is constantly pointing out how we're not perfect and what we didn't do perfectly. So that perfect person, I mean, she is, she's insidious and she's vicious. And so the imperfect part that we see in what you do for us, we see everywhere, and especially in ourselves. So it's something that we have to become aware of in order to get ahead of it and not let her come out of our mouth. And one of the things that helps is to pay attention to effort. How much effort, how much time and effort and resources did he put into doing what he did for you? And even that he did anything for you. So as human beings, we have these weird concepts where, depending on the name of the relationship, like you're my boyfriend, you're my husband, you're my son, we have this interesting concept that most people never examine of, you owe me. You're my husband, so you owe me that. You're my boyfriend, so you owe me that. You're my son, so you owe me that. You're my daughter, so you owe me that. And anything that we consider owed, when it's provided, well, now you just did what you're supposed to do and we're even. Why should I appreciate that you did what you were supposed to do? So it's a mess. It's a mess of deserving and entitlement, because we won't appreciate what we think we're owed. And if we think we're not owed it, we can barely accept it because we think we haven't earned it yet, and now we'll owe you. So another way of saying this is we suck at receiving. And this is what Claudia brought up at the beginning of chapter 4. And men also suck at receiving. It's a human problem that will take what we think is owed to us and will refuse what we think isn't owed because we don't want to be obligated. Or if we think we don't deserve it, but we take it anyway, then we'll feel shame for having done that, because honorable people feel shame when they take what they think they don't deserve. And so people spend a lot of time trying to convince themselves they deserve things, instead of what I think the real way to solve this is to get out of the domain of deserving and owed and demand, and instead move into the realm of giving and receiving. And giving and receiving is where you can have truly magical upward spirals. And so in giving and receiving, it keeps changing. The person who's receiving is asking for something, but then the person who's giving may need something that they would receive from the person receiving in order to be able to do it. And it has to do with details. It has to do with appreciation. And you'll see Claudia in chapter 6 moving from providing in chapter 4, which is at the heart of a man, to then how do you communicate? And it's a word that's very hard for people to use. It's the word need. And we'll get to talk about that next week. And I'll give you actually an alternative that some people find as, if not more effective, and somehow easier to use. It has less baggage, but we'll talk about that next week. So in scoring points, men score points, or anybody gets to score points, one would think, when you give someone something they need, when you provide something that matters for them, when they're better off because of something you did, even if it's just being there. And this is all in the domain of appreciation and acknowledgement. And acknowledgement is calling attention to something, and those are called warm and cold clues. We could talk more about that in later sessions. It's not in the Queen's Code. But letting someone know, like taking out the trash. Taking out the trash to a woman is one task. Taking out the trash to most men is like 4 tasks. Take out the bag, tie it off, make sure it leaves the house without dripping anywhere. Get it in the trash that's going to go out to the street. Then come back, put a new trash bag in, tie it off so it won't fall into the bin. And then wherever it was, push the cupboard back, close the doors, make it pristine and all ready for anything that someone may have their hands full of to get to put in there, instead of, oh no, there's not a trash can. Oh no, there's not a trash bag. Oh no, the trash bag's going to fall in. So what to one woman, that's one task to one woman. All those things are just take out the trash to most women. And to most men, they're all separate. And so we actually have to ask for them and treat them separately. And say a man does everything but tie off the new bag. He puts a new bag in, but he doesn't know to tie it off so it won't fall in. Like, oh man, honey, this is awesome. Out of 100 points, you got 80 points. And I can see the other 20 points you didn't even know you could earn. So can I tell you about it so you can always get 100 points? That way, most men will respond. Most men want to score 100 points or 1,000 points. They want all the points. But if they get 0, why did I play in the first place? And for those of you who have sons or husbands or boyfriends who play video games, we can learn a lot from video games, because video games that are addictive, as we think, or that people just enjoy playing a lot, they have mastered the play for points. So if you move your character, if you do anything, if you make any effort, you get points. If you take a bigger risk, you get bigger points. If you, in taking a bigger risk, fall off a cliff and die, you press a reset button and you get to start again. You're not yelled at. You're not withheld sex from for 2 weeks. You're not made to feel like you're a terrible human being. And for those of you who are dating, video games can teach us that it's always voluntary to go to the next level of difficulty. No video game drags somebody into the next level because they succeeded at the existing one. And they're never dragged into the next level by failing at the existing one. But honestly, women try to drag men from dating to boyfriend, from boyfriend to fiance, when they're not winning at what they're doing and they don't have confidence that they'll do anything but die at the next level.
I love that. I have one, in our pod, we talked about this, and the man in our group was so great in helping us to see the points are appreciation, admiration, even action, like physical affection or doing something or just being happy, right? So it's not, hey, like we don't have to, our partner doesn't even have to know the concept of points. We know that points to our partner are, and it is helpful to communicate, right? And say, hey, this is the idea, these are points, and then actually say, hey, you got 8 out of 10 points, and be able to have the language around it. I think it's really great, right? But even if we don't have the language around it, a smile, a hug, a rub on the back, a massage, like these things are points. Is that right?
Absolutely. Wow is a point. Pretty Woman, her sinking down into the tub and flapping her little dolphin feet. A lot of points. But you can also do points like one time. So Dan knows that if he burps and says, excuse me, that's honoring of me. But early in our relationship, he I don't know what he'd done. I'd probably given him a soda and he was burping a lot. And he's like, oh no. And I said, okay, let's see. So out of the 3 million points you've already gotten so far in the last 2 months since we've known each other, because of those burps, now you're at 2,999,996. He just cracked up because one of the things that men experience is not being forgiven, and that all their good, when they fail at something, the failure is treated not in a context of all the good, all they've contributed, all they've provided. It's as if they've done nothing and now they're completely in the negative and they're treated that way. And it's demotivating. And one of the things that women most want from men is accountability. When you take on being accountable for something and we really can trust you that you'll always do it, or you'll tell us if you can't do it, that's a huge gift. That's a huge gift between any two people. But we don't know how to nurture accountability by nurturing leadership, by asking for what really matters to us and setting up people to win and making sure we really, really, really appreciate it, that we let them know we take it personally. Appreciation is personal. You didn't take out the trash because the trash needed to be taken out. You took out the trash for me. And you're hearing Karen realize this in chapter 4. And you can't listen to chapter 4 too much. You just can't. You'll see there's so many nuances of points, and you'll see how Claudia gives Bert points and how much he puffs up by them and how happy she is to get to give him that feeling with her appreciation. So I'm going to say that. I'm also going to say how we appreciate matters. So all the things that you said, Paige, are true. And what matters in our ongoing relationships is to ask, how do you like to be appreciated? And like Dan takes care of my dog when we travel, and he takes care of my donkey when we travel. And sometimes when I travel, and sometimes he takes care of my plants, my orchids when I travel. And one of the things that I do is, like, I might take him out to dinner when I get back because he loves to be taken out to dinner. Like, could I appreciate you by taking you out to dinner? Sure. Or I've even appreciated him in advance. I've presented him with one of his favorite cakes called Jack bread. This is appreciation in advance. Thank you for everything you're doing for me for the next 4 days. And then it's like, whoo! So, but you learn that about someone, what really lights them up and what's, oh, you're welcome, because those aren't points that matter to them. That's not a currency, is a better word for it. So learning someone's currency is important. Okay, I'm looking at the clock, so I'm going to keep going. All right, another question about chapter 4. After years of emasculating my husband and him losing points for trying to help instead of earning them, good job seeing that, by the way, whoever wrote this. I mean, that awareness and your willingness to have that awareness it's awesome. Really, it matters. I'm hoping we can somehow have a reset. How can I get my husband to regain the desire to help after swearing off working for my wife, after I've sworn off using the sword? So good job on this. And the thing about a reset, unlike a video game, we can't just push a button and we're back at the beginning. Without history, without hurt, but we can be restored. And this is something I've spent so much of my time on, because I don't think you can damage human beings. We're too magnificent. I don't think we can be permanently damaged. I think we can be bruised and battered. I think we can think we're damaged, but I've done so much restoration work where like profoundly deep hurts, all the hurt is gone. There's just a memory like Kimberly's having of her childhood, and there's lessons learned and strength that's built, but there's no more hurt. There's no more need to protect oneself. But healing begins with the will to be healed. Someone has to be willing to be healed, like they actually want to be healed. And many things get in the way of people wanting to be healed because they're having so much benefit from their injuries or their shame. They use them to manipulate people. They use them instead of authentic boundaries. So, you can't talk to me like that because of what happened to me, instead of, I require that you speak to me kindly and with respect. Just period. I require that. It doesn't matter whatever happened at any time. I didn't earn it by having been injured. I require it because I'm honoring myself. So the thing that I would recommend that you do is first to acknowledge what you did. Acknowledge it to your husband and to apologize to him for having done that, for having hurt him that way, for having disregarded how much he was spending his life for you and didn't get anything back from it. In fact, he was worse off from having done that. And I mean, him swearing off working for his wife, he had to do that. There's a point where instinct kicks in and you can't keep putting out more than you're getting back, because that's how you, from a calorie standpoint, that's how you die. And men are measuring everything like that. It's part of their tracking, the worth it calculation. And so there's acknowledging it. There's, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I did that. And then there's even the willingness to appreciate what he's already done. And this is so important. You can't start back at zero. There are points that need to be paid, points that need to be given. And so you can start with, honey, I can start with things I know you did and I didn't appreciate it and appreciate you now. Or we could start with you, tell me something that you did that I didn't appreciate and I will appreciate you for it now. Or we can take turns. What do you think? And you may have to set a timer, like, okay, we're going to do this for 15 minutes every day until all the holes are filled in, till everything that you gave has been acknowledged and appreciated, and you're ahead in points before I ask anything else of you. I had to do a version of that with my boyfriend after a very hard period of time, and he couldn't remember. He couldn't. I saw that I had frog farmed Dan. Like, he was completely different than how he used to be. And I go, oh my gosh, I frog farmed him. I need to own that. And I said, can you tell me how I've hurt you and disrespected you so that I can give you what you need to be whole? And he said, I can't remember. And I took a deep breath and said, okay, will you let me have a go at it? And he's like, sure. And I did mass. I am sorry for any time and every time I disrespected you. I'm sorry for any time and every time I hurt your feelings. I'm sorry for any time and every time I may have even come close to crushing you. I'm sorry for any time and every time I dissed you in any way. I'm sorry for any time and every time I interrupted you when you're in the middle of telling me something that mattered to you. I'm sorry. I just went on and on and on and on until I wasn't anything that I hadn't thought of. Anything I thought of, I said. And there was a long silence at the end of it. And there were deep breaths. And he said, I'm sorry too. And then there were more deep breaths. And then he said, do you still want to be my girlfriend? It was, heck yes. Because we were literally restored just from that. And it takes a lot of heart, it takes a lot of compassion, it takes a lot of humility. But oh my gosh, it's amazing. And it takes it on both sides. The willing to receive it. If your husband is willing to receive this from you, he's already giving you something else. And that's important to ask too. Would you give me one thing before I ask you for anything else? Would you let me do this? Okay, so that's my answer to that. Now I'm looking at the clock. Okay, we're doing great. Okay, now chapter 5. Chapter 5, I have one question about chapter 5, and again, anonymous and beautifully worded, and just so, I just was so pleased by what you're doing with this question, whoever did this. And I'm sure you're not the only one that had this happen or something like it. I finished listening to chapter 5 on Sunday and had a super strong, visceral, emotional reaction to Kimberly's experience and answers to her grandmother's questions. but I have no recollection of anything inappropriate ever happening to me. I figured I'd sit with it for a few days, see if something came to me like an answer. Oh, if something came to me like an answer, a healing direction, etc. But so far, still blank. Any ideas on what to try, do, or consider? Or maybe that's a typical reaction for many women. I felt like Karen's responses to Claudia's sex questions were super nice, but totally relatable to me. Sex is the place mine, our relationship
Unrelatable.
always struggles. It says mine is a place mine, our relationship always struggles. I'm fine with that words. Oh, yeah, no, it says totally relatable to me. Yeah, it's not unrelatable, totally relatable to me. Yeah. So, and even if it is unrelatable, I can still respond. So, I assert that human beings are empathetic, and it's built in, and some of us are more aware of it than others. And we can experience other people's pain. We can walk in their shoes for a moment and have a really strong relationship to what happened, a really strong reaction to what happened. And we don't have to have anything close. We don't have to have anything at all. It's a human connection. And so having a strong reaction, I mean, I didn't have that happen, and I weep through listening to it and wept reading it out loud, and to keep restarting to read that section out loud and recording the book. So it doesn't mean that had to happen. It just means you have empathy and compassion for the people to whom it does happen, and which are both boys and girls, men and women. And one of the most important things to get from that part of the Queen's Code is the effect of compassion that Claudia illuminated something for Kimberly, which helped. An illumination is a healing modality. There are many. Personal responsibility is a healing modality. Giving it to God's a healing modality. Having a sense of humor is a human modality. There's so many. Forgiveness, I traffic in a lot of them. But compassion has a particular effect. Has a particular effect on the shock of something. And Kimberly's been in a state of shock since she was 10 years old. And so her grandmother's compassion and then the illumination helped with Kimberly's shame. And even that she got to ask herself, can I forgive myself? Oh, I didn't do it. Can I forgive the needy little girl I was? So compassion, illumination, forgiveness, self-forgiveness, letting us off the hook for things we're holding ourselves accountable for, which honorable people do, and it's beautiful, but it also will grind us into the ground because shame will have us think we deserve nothing. And then we're even worse off in the domain of being able to ask for what we need and receive it. And you'll hear more about that in chapter 6.
The question was unrelatable. So just the idea that for some couples, I probably mistyped it, so I take responsibility.
Okay.
I didn't copy that. It was off the text, but I do think like for people that it's awesome they have that relationship, but if a couple's relationship is so hard,
I got it.
Yeah, I got it.
I got it. I got it. So you mistyped it, but totally unrelatable to me. So the important thing to do with you and your partner, it is to give your answers. And sex is incredibly complex. They're out of, I think, 17 sessions in Understanding Women, probably 12 of them relate to women's receptivity to sex, use of sex, needs for sex. I mean, it's sex is what a good sex life is, what's doing so many things adds up to. And we don't have to do them perfectly. We don't even have to do them well much of the time. Just the commitment to reaching towards the other person and finding how to connect and how to be clear and how to heal each other. That all of that is necessary for sex to be sustainable, beyond a chemical stranger attraction that generates it. So for anyone to whom Mike and Karen's really responses you didn't connect with, look at your own. Just look at your own responses. You don't have to be like them. All of the responses in the Queen's Code have been validated by many, 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 many men and women who've expressed similar things, but it doesn't mean it's the same. And on our website, one of the things I recommend is Jaya Love's work. It's spelled Jaya, and Miss Jaya, MISS Jaya.com. And one of the things I appreciate about her work, as I do with others that I recommend there, is anything we can learn about ourselves that helps us to honor ourselves and ask for and receive what matters to us is vital to what I am working on that I see possible in relationships. And Jaya has a quiz there, and it's called the Erotic Blueprints, and there's 5 of them. And my husband was my first long-term relationship, and so Greg was my imprint of men and sex. And then after he died, and I realized I did want to be in a romantic relationship, I found out about the Erotic Blueprints, and it was like light bulbs going on in the bedroom. Oh, this was how Greg was. It's not how everybody is. And then seeing there's all these other ways of relating to sex and what our turns on and turn-ons and turn-offs and what we have to have and what we can't have happen. It's really, really valuable to know. And it can also help to heal hurts, because we tend to give what we want to get. And even when it isn't connecting with the other person, because humans react slowly. Like you could get feedback from somebody 2 years later that something didn't work for them, or that something really did work for them. You might never know. We stumble around blind and guessing a lot. And so this goes back to clues. If we can give feedback kindly, without emotion, without condemnation, just truth. This works, this doesn't. And have an acceptance for each of our bodies works differently. Each of our psyches works differently. Each of our emotions have a different place in or out of sex. So whatever you and your partner's answers to those questions are, what does sex provide for you? And how does it change depending on that activity? And then pumpkin hours and desserts. Take for any of you, take what you can relate to in their responses, or notice if it opens up something you never even thought to think about before. But they're not the right answers. They're not standard answers. They're not to judge by. Your answers are what matter. And that's how you'll connect with your partner. And those conversations about signals and pumpkin hours and jump starts, they can be really uncomfortable. You might do it on the telephone, even if you live together. Honestly, for probably 6 years of marriage, for 3 years of marriage, for sure, must have been, we got married 9. Yeah, I could only talk to him on the phone about sex. And then for about 6 years after that, I could talk to him in person, but only with the lights out. And then a couple years of the lights on before I could turn and look at him. I was a lot like Karen, hard to get the words out. Okay, I'm going to keep going. All right, so these are questions that are going to, I'm going to save them for number 6, or you can resubmit them if you still have them. Every woman seems to have different levels of comfort with men being supportive / providing. What if a woman is fundamentally uncomfortable with what a man is doing, but he may just be trying to be supportive and not misbehaving? How do we respond without being emasculating? So getting clear about what you do want to have provided and what you don't want. Like, that doesn't feel like support to me. Support looks like this. Or in this area, I don't need support. I just want to, support would be leave me alone to do it. So in chapter 6, there's some things to look at that will help you get more clear about what you actually need and want from men. There's another one for the same chapter. What if it's really hard to figure out what to ask for or need from a man? Chapter 6 will help for that. And it's very common, by the way. I don't need anything from a man and don't know what to ask for or need from him. I know that sounds harsh. I'm not married. So I see if I were, there would be certain things for partnership in that way. So I would expand where you're looking to beyond romantic relationship and male friends, male coworkers, men on the street. We can be provided for everywhere. It's so part of who they are. And one of the things that's normal, we talk about this in Lux, is for human beings to keep our lives small enough to reduce what we need from other people. Self-sufficiency is a human compulsion. And so if you were going to take on something in your life beyond your comfort zone, what could you do that if you had certain kinds of support or encouragement or companionship or mentoring or even just help? Yeah, but it's normal. We've tried to not need anything from men. And in our Smart Singles, there are women I've had to say, okay, so first thing to figure out is, what do you need from a man? What can a man provide for you that you can't give yourself? Well, I can't rub my back. Yeah, but I could pay for a massage. But is that the same as somebody cares about you rubbing your back? Well, but I could have a friend rub my back. But is that the same as man hands? Like, sometimes you have to look closer. And there are ways that, in my research, I've discovered there are ways that men can be there for us and have an impact on our sense of ourselves and our sense of safety that no number of women can do. We talk about that in Understanding Women as well. Okay, so now I'm going to go on to this one, and it's long, and I'm excerpting it. And this is tough. And I'm going to say some things about it, and then I'm going to take questions that you guys have. While listening and listening/reading to the book, listening to the book, I have had to fight back tears and strong emotions multiple times, especially when the dialogue is conveying the negative conversations between men and women. When I hear these dialogues, my emotions swell up, and I have literally had to stop my eyes from tearing up. Where I see direct and clear, almost recordings of our relationship, they see nothing, or at least they say they don't. We're going through a tough time lately, and I don't want to give up. This course has opened my eyes to at least one aspect of our relationship. I don't know if my partner is trying to apply the lessons to our marriage. I want things to work. I will try anything. This is one of the hardest things, is to feel like you're fighting for something alone, and the other person seems to not even be aware that there's something to fight for, that it's going to fall apart if we don't. And I'm passionate about partnership. So, and partnership's a wonderful word because it has its main component in it. The first part of partnership is part. What's my part? What's not my part? What can I do? What is mine to do? And what can't I make happen? Because we can't make other people do things. And I mostly have interacted with couples just working with one side of the couple. And there's so much that can be done just from one side. But there's still the other person's part. So there's no guarantee. And changing the way that we listen to each other, which you just got introduced to, listening to learn and waiting for the well, that can change so many things, because often the things we're arguing or fighting about aren't even the same thing because nobody's listening. We're just sort of just yelling things at each other, and they're not even, the dots aren't even connecting because of how we're listening, what's being filtered out. And so we often don't even feel like we're heard, let alone seen. So what you wrote here, whoever wrote this, we're going through a tough time lately, and I don't want to give up. One of the things that matters is to confront that, to confront giving up, to look at, okay, I don't want to give up, but is there a point that I'm going to give up? What is that point? And if you can have clarity about what that point is, it's like having a destination. There's now a path. And in this case, it's where you don't want to get to. But if it gets to here, I'm going to give up. This is how much work I'm willing to put into this. This is how long I'm willing to work on this on my own without the response from my partner that I need. So getting clear about giving up and when are you going to give up matters, and it matters to communicate it, because so many men and women, especially when married, we do this thing in marriage that I wish I could smash it. So we take vows similar to love, honor, and cherish until death do us part. And then we'll hold someone to account for till death do us part, when we won't hold ourselves or the other to account for love, honor, and cherish. No kidding. And the Queen's Code and all of my work is about that. What does loving and honoring and cherish look like, especially between people with opposing instincts and needs at so many different levels? I want things to work. I will try anything. Probably not. And I hope not. Because too many things you will try would involve completely sacrificing and dishonoring who you are. So limits on what you'll try, limits on how far you go, limits on how much you'll live with that is not love, honor, and cherish. It matters. Holding people to account for who they were when you started. What happened to the person I married? What happened to the person you married? Maybe we can't go back, but what do we want to go forward to? And there's a human assessment that that sometimes we're ashamed of having the thoughts in our head, but I think it's important to do them consciously. And it's the reaction of I'm better off with, or I'm better off without. And I'm better off with this person. How? I'm better off without this person. How? They're better off with me in this way. They're better off without me in this way. And even there's better off in the domain of the ability to survive and deal with life and family. And there's better off at a spiritual level. Who do you get to be because of who that person is? Are you more truly who you are, who you're meant to be, who you could say came to earth to be, because of them? Or does it make it really hard for you to be that person? So I am pro partnership. I am pro kindness and respect and honoring and truth. And I'm not pro save a marriage at all costs. Many of them aren't worth saving. And people are better off not trying to work things out. And many times we can have a better relationship with someone when we stop trying to get what we need that they can't or won't give, and just interact with them in the areas where we can be better partners with each other, like raising children, but not trying to be a romantic relationship anymore. Okay, I know it's a heavy topic, and everyone interacting with this, I wish you well. I know on our 20th anniversary, I had a horrible thought leading up to it that I finally coughed up to my husband. And I said, the voice in my head says I'm better off without you. And I was sobbing. And he what? And I told him, I said, this is a terrible thought. I don't even want to tell you this is a terrible thought. And then when I told him, sobbing through it, after a few moments, he said, you're right. That's a terrible thought. And I better fix that. And we reinvented how our last child had gone off to college and was on her way out. And we reinvented our marriage because we'd raised a family. We'd published the Queen's Code. Now what? And we got to play with the now what. And we didn't have an answer at the time, So I said, what if we see how sweet we can be to each other? And we did that for the next 6 years. We didn't have a new purpose. I mean, he always had as a purpose supporting me, but we didn't have a new overarching purpose. But the game was, how sweet can we be to each other? It was a good thing to do for the last 6 years of his life. We didn't know we only had 6 years.
So beautiful.
Okay.
So are you ready to take questions?
I am, and
Okay,
Julia has her hand.
Jody had her hand up earlier, but I was just clear that she has a question, and then we'll go to Julia, and then if anyone else has a question, just raise your hand and I'll kind of take note, and I'll just unmute people when you're ready for the next one. Does that work, Alison?
It does work, but if I could do what I said in the beginning, which is first check if somebody has a question about, if it's about chapter 4, if you know if it's about chapter 4 and providing, if anyone knows, not you, Jill. JC, is yours about chapter 4 and providing? You can just shake your head. Yes. So let's do JC first. Okay, great. Julia, are you about chapter 5 or about something other? Okay, perfect. So JC and Julia, and then we can open it up to ones that people don't really know where it went to. Okay, so JC, you're the microphone. Yay. Thanks, Paige.
Sorry, my name's Jody. I forgot to rename myself on here.
Okay, hi, Jody.
This is so incredible, eye-opening, and life-changing, and I've been kind of nauseous all week. Honestly, I've only got through chapter 4 because I've had to rewind like 30 times. So my question, I have a lot, but just for right now, I've had this pattern raised by a single, very independent mom. Don't owe anybody anything, take care of yourself, always do. So I do, and then I attract men, they get with me, they quit their jobs, and I support them and I resent them and all of that. So I have not had a relationship for almost 8 years since my daughter's father, she's going to be 11. We co-parent, at least we try. We're starting co-parenting counseling tonight, but I've always thought of him as a rageful narcissist. And he may be. However, now that we're going through this training, I'm seeing these ways. Oh my God! Like I'm just my eyes are opening. So, and I want to tread lightly along this. But what's happening is he doesn't work. He rarely works. If he does, he doesn't contribute to me. And my daughter lives with me full time. He demands his equal half of time with her. And I noticing now this week that I'm kind of punish him for not doing the one thing that he should be doing. Like I can't respect him. So like my question is, how can I respect him?
And is the one thing child support?
Well, just contribute financially. Like this is, and then looking back at my childhood, that my mom had the same problem. This is like I'm repeating history here.
Yes.
And then
I can answer your question.
Okay. Yes. Please help me.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to start at the beginning because I'm a freedom fighter. Okay. And often our prisons are formed of words, they're formed of language. So to say I have a pattern because the I have, okay, then you get to keep it since you're owning it. And the because of my mother, okay, you have a good reason to keep it. All right, it's all yours. So there's a kind of divorce I believe in, and it's divorcing from I have my issue because we often don't have any idea why things happen. And most things aren't even close to personal. Like your mother was the way she was, not even from the becauses that we think. It's congruent with being human. It's just all human. And that's our biggest problem. We were born human. And when you can just get it as human, you can lighten up. You don't have to solve it yourself. Oh, it's human. So now what am I going to do? The other thing is notice. And I'm not saying this is right or wrong. And I I was the child of divorced parents, and I heard these conversations, and my first husband and I divorced, and we had, we were co-raising our son in different ways, and I had my own arguments about that. So I understand how it happens, and just notice that one of the things you have hooked together is time and money. That for your daughter's father to deserve that much time with his daughter, he needs to pay money.
Shit. Oh.
And so there's that part, and I'm glad you're getting it. Good job. Your heart and mind is phenomenally open. So just notice, wow, but what if it isn't about that? What if your commitment is to your daughter? And how old is your daughter?
She'll be 11 next month.
11. Geez. Okay. She starts her period. In other cultures, she'd be a mom.
Dear God.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm just saying she has tremendous capacities that usually aren't considered. So your daughter may have something to say about how much what she gets from being with her dad, how much she'd like to be with her dad, and what circumstances she wants to be with her dad, because she's old enough to have a sense of her own well-being.
Well, she doesn't want to be with him that much. And that's another struggle, is how, and if I tell him that, he thinks I'm making that up because she doesn't feel comfortable telling him.
She's afraid to
So
tell him.
this whole
I
thing
get it.
because,
I get it. I get it. And that's also not even those becauses. When you get to chapter 5, girl children and grown men, the power, perception, and dynamic, the amount of fear to displease any grown man is huge. And I only know about the fury that emasculation can cause. I don't know about excessive. I don't know about that. I'm not an expert on that. But I do know that trigger, and it happens a lot. But if you can detach the time and money, that these are separate things. And the time has everything to do with your daughter and her needs and her desires. And perhaps your therapist can help with this. Perhaps she'd like to meet with your daughter, and then she can be a more reasonable or acceptable representation of your daughter to her father.
yeah, we just got our daughter in counseling.
Oh, yeah, hold on a second.
Yeah.
Hold on. I don't have much time to keep answering. Okay. Thank you. The other side is one of the hardest things for men especially to do is to try to get out of the hole. It's to try to spend energy to get to zero. Another way of saying that is they're not motivated by not upsetting people. They're not motivated by people being upset unless they feel dependent upon them. That's the only time they're motivated by that. And it sets up a sucky dynamic. So it's what we were talking about, I was talking about earlier with appreciation. I think if the IRS sent us a thank you note for paying our taxes and told us what a difference it made, instead of we're entitled to this money and you'll go to jail if you don't give it to us, we'd have a really different relationship to our government. And I truly think that whether it's a man or a woman's sending the child support check, if that person then received a note saying, thank you for the X dollars I want you to know what you provided for your son, what you provided for your daughter. Because you did that, they got to do this. Because you do that, they now have this. Because without that communication, you made this difference in their lives. They think they're paying for your car, your clothes, your shoes, and they don't want to support you. Or at least they think they don't. They want to support their children and feel like they're actively making a difference in their child's life. But the connection needs to be made. It needs to be verbalized. It needs to be appreciated. And when we demand things of people, this will show up again in chapter 6, their only choice is to submit or resist. It's a terrible dynamic. It only gets worse. It never gets better.
He's not contributed anything, so I don't have anything to be grateful for. But when he offers to like do my yard or do something, I think to myself, how dare him? He should be looking for work instead of letting.
Wait. He offers to do things for you?
Yes, but it doesn't work because he upsets the energy when he's around. So
okay, well then that's something different to talk to him about. I would love for you to do the yard. Is there something I could do to help you not be grumpy while you do it? So this is more complicated, but the thing to do is you've got this tangled necklace and everything seems to be connected to things and then it's just stuck. Start pulling it apart. There are things he is offering to provide. Wow, this is a good sign, right? These are things he's never provided. Maybe he never will.
Yeah.
What if you let it go? What if you let it go and he got to start winning at what he could provide, which then when we win at something, we go, what else could I win at? And one of the things about men, especially, men go from win to win and from smaller wins to bigger wins. From losses, they just go away.
Well, he brought coffee this morning, and in the past, before your class, I would have thought, well, he damn well better because he drinks like 5 cups of my coffee a day. But today I said, thank you. I just ran out of coffee and how wonderful. And he responded in kind. It was, thank you.
My life. Step one was a cup of
got
coffee.
10 points. 10 points today.
A cup of coffee was appreciated. Yes. Keep going. Okay.
Yes. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're very welcome. And good job. I'm glad you had to read chapter 4 again and listen to it again and again.
I'm still going to keep listening.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Where did Julia go? Her hand's not up anymore. Did you get your answer?
I just took it down just now.
Okay. Still have a question?
Yes, I do. So I get a lot of value out of ideas of other people. I was so excited in chapter 5 to learn so many things. And I've already been implementing many and had big changes over the weekend. I loved the idea of the various tools introduced. And the question is, where can we get more of the juicy ideas of what others have found helpful or fun for sex tank fillers, jump starts, and desserts? Because I would love to have more. I feel myself craving. What are things other people have done? Because I have my own, but I'm wanting to be exposed to some ideas that other people have that I might not have thought of.
Okay. Well, I think that's in Paige's domain with your mastermind groups. And I don't know, maybe she establishes a Google Doc with anonymous contributions. Sometimes people are private about those things like that.
That's the thing is I'm like, people are private. How do you get ideas when you might not have any concept? I know that there's books on Chinese sexuality that has a lot of stuff. Maybe I just need to go research. I just wondered if you had any place where there was a resource for that kind of thing.
No, except for just taking the quiz at missjaya.com with all the questions it asks about turn-ons and turn-offs, boy, does that give you a lot of things you never would have thought of. Especially if you want to go farther along that line. She has even more explicit distinctions within all these categories. And oh my gosh, things I never even knew. So I'm not going to be your resource for that. I'm sorry for that.
Okay, that's okay. Just one. Thank you.
You're welcome. Will you give Casey the microphone, Paige?
Yeah, she just unmuted me. I was just gonna
Good.
let everybody, and to Julia's question, I think I get the gist of it. And you mentioned that that other link for that quiz. There's a Netflix series called Love, Sex, and Goop.
Oh yeah, she's actually
covers-
been on there.
She's on that, yes. Yeah, when I saw that, I'm like, she was featured on there. So
Yeah. Love,
I've
sex.
watched it.
Yep. You can do that. Yes, thank you, Casey. Any other questions?
We had a question that came up earlier at the beginning. Roxanne, you have a question. Just a quick one of how you refer to 98% of people and men are good, but there are some dangerous men. And one of the people at the beginning, before you came on, was just saying, like, how do you tell if someone is one of those 2%? Or, you know, what about those addicts? Or what about those? And I've kind of asked this before, but wondering if you can add to that aspect of it. Like, we kind of talk about the assumption that men are good, but what if we are dealing with someone that isn't?
Well, part of the problem, Paige, is in about a decade ago, the term that was being thrown around was unhealthy men. And so on our website under free stuff, there are two recordings that go together. At the very top under if you just hover on free, like it'll open up. So there's one called When is Narcissism Real? Because that's the word that's thrown around now. And under that is Unhealthy Men, The Secrets of Early Detection. And what that distinguishes is that most women confuse the characteristics of healthy men as unhealthy because they're not how a woman is. So as compared to the perfect person based on a female ideal, 99% of men are unhealthy. And it's just not true. They're just not women, they're men. And yes, there are dangerous men, and there are also dangerous women. And the thing that distinguishes it is the same. And it's a person's relationship to innocence. Dangerous men and women, their relationship to innocence is not the desire to protect it. It's the desire to corrupt it, the desire to destroy it, the desire to purpose it. It's evil. It's in our relationship to innocence that we can see good people. And most people are good people. And unfortunately, the bad people are prolific. Like literally just prolific. The number of children that can be molested by a man or a woman, because it's not just men, in a year, like 100 or more kids in 1 year could be molested by one person. And this is what gives us the impression that there are so many bad men. We don't hear about the women. So one is the relationship to innocence, and the other, especially with men, because women are different about it, is how does a man react to you being happy? If he attacks you when you're happy, that's bad. Unless you've made him clear that somebody else made him happy and he never will. Then he's going to attack you. The other thing is we need to screen better. So I wrote a book called Making Sense of Men. It's the only nonfiction book that we've actually published. And it distinguishes the kinds of attraction that men experience. And one kind of attraction has us relate to us as an object, from themselves as an object to us as an object. This is not because they're bad. It's the type of attraction. Another kind of attraction has them care about us, want to contribute to us, love us, protect us. And what inspires that kind of attraction is very good for us, and it's good for them. In situations, we need to screen for the kind of attraction. And too often, because of human beings' addiction to chemistry, we are addicted to chemistry. It's a highly addictive chemical cocktail in our body. Because we're addicted to chemistry, we will ignore the signs that the way we're attracted to each other has us not care about the other person or them care about us. And this is why I teach men and women. The first thing to express is something you need, and then wait and see how they respond. Do they invalidate your need because it's in the way of what they want? Do they make fun of it? What do you need that for? That's stupid. Or do they go, oh, okay, you need that. So they don't even need it because you need it because you need it. This is a good sign. You don't have to justify it. Oh, you need to be in bed by 10. Okay, so that plan won't work. Okay, give me a minute. I have to think of something else to do to get you home on time. Oh, okay, I have something. That is good. That is all good signs. And even curiosity. Do you have something important to do the next day that you need to be to bed by 10? Every day I do something important, and every night I need to be home alone by 10. Oh, someone just expressed a boundary that's going to last over and over and over again. Oh, okay. All right. So how about I pick you up for dinner at 5? This is someone who just found out something very important to you, and they're still game on.
Yeah, I love that. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
I tell men to do the exact same thing, by the way.
Yeah.
Say, express something that you need and see, does she roll over it? Like you said, nothing. Like if you're in a dating app where it's about messaging, get off messaging ASAP. So what I need next is to have a conversation on the phone. And in that conversation, I would love it if you would be willing to tell me anything about these 3 things you said in your profile. And these are some questions that I would actually really enjoy being asked. And then if they don't respond, the end. If they respond, no, let's just get together, the end. Why would one want to start a romantic relationship with someone who doesn't follow instructions? Bad sign.
Good. Well, I want to get to Roxanne because I know her question was up right as I was asking mine. So she's off mute if you have time to answer hers quick.
We have 3 more minutes.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted your quick input. We had a beautiful response on the pod call yesterday, but is it possible for a man to not want to provide? And are there men who don't play for points?
I've never met a man who didn't want to provide, but I've met tons of men who couldn't provide what the person wanted. And I know I've met many, many men who've said something along the lines of, I've got no business getting married. I can barely take care of myself. So they're aware of they've got to provide for themselves at a minimum level before they can then take on providing for someone else. and they know that that's part of being in a relationship, is providing. I also, if you decide to listen to Keys to the Kingdom, which is the prequel to the Queen's Code, and when we first meet Mike and Karen and Claudia and Bert, in every stage, there's what a man can provide without sacrificing himself and what he can't provide. And we often expect people to sacrifice themselves, but ultimately that is very bad in the effect that it'll have. So one of the things we have to watch out for is what I want provided for me, something the other person is either willing to provide, wants to provide, or would even consider it a privilege to provide. Are we a match in the providing and receiving? So that's how you end up with the upward spiral. And the more matches like that you have, the better off you are. But often men who aren't making an effort to provide is because in their own reality, they're digging themselves out of a hole themselves. They don't have overflow. They don't have extra. But it is often can be the currency. Like Jody's daughter's father. He isn't trying to provide money, but he is trying to provide yard work. So it's important to listen to what are men offering. Instead of what do I think I can get from him, listen to what he's offering, because men offer what they want to provide. Their offers are sincere. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Yay. Okay, Brooke, is it a quick one or something maybe Paige can answer? What can we? Oh, we have more hands up. I can't stay late, you guys. I have what?
Yeah, I think that your answer to that last question just helped me realize, I think what I'm requesting with physical touch with my husband is something he can't provide. And though I keep requesting it, it's something he can't provide. So that was my question that I've been asking him again and again and saying, oh, that this is what it gives me, but it's still not working. So I think it's just something that he is not able to provide.
Okay, so I'm going to say this and then I got to run. Have you ever asked him, if you're willing to provide it, what do you need from me?
Great. That's the question I'll ask him. Thank you.
Yeah. Ask him that. And he might be, I'm not willing to provide it. I'm not a touchy person. or I need you to bring lotion. I need you to ask me ahead of time for when you want it so I can plan it. I need you to ask me for it when I have slept. Who knows what he's going to say, but that's the question. And you'll learn this question in chapter 6.
Is there anything I can do? How do I say it?
This is being recorded. You can replay it all you want, or you can just listen to chapter 6.
What can I do to help you provide that? Okay, good.
You're right on track. Chapter 6.
Okay.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Alison.
Groups. Glad to be
you.
here.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you, everyone, for all the wonderful questions and for being here. If you have a question or want to chat for a few more minutes, go ahead. Julia, you did have a question that you had, and
yeah, it was just real quick, but I wish she would have had it like 10 seconds. It was just to find out where that rage videos that she mentioned last week, and we never found out where the rage video was located.
Okay, I'll send that out with the recording. So I'm glad you asked about that. Yeah, I'll send that out with the recording that you'll get in the next hour or so. It'll be on your email. So go there.